On this week's edition of the Ospreys Eyrie podcast, Robbie and I take a look back at the Zebra game. We also have a little reminisce on Ospreys in Europe. So lots of tangents about Johnny Wilkinson and various other things. We take a deep dive into the Ospreys European squad and look ahead to the challenge that the Lions bring on the weekend. If you like what you hear, subscribe on YouTube, give us a rate on whatever podcast platform you're on, and enjoy. Hello and welcome back to the Ospreys Eyrie podcast, the podcast who isn't fragile enough to shout at a woman's player because they went to another club. If you've all seen the news this week, it's been the talk of the office, right, with us that Ilona Maher has obviously gone to Bristol, right?
Yeah.
And it's rightly the biggest thing to happen probably in rugby this year.
Yeah, yeah. From a signing point of view, absolutely it is, especially.
I mean, you thought Geordie Barrett to Leinster couldn't be top.
But no, this has blown it completely out the water. This is, as you say, enormous. This is the biggest name in the game signing for a club who they are going to boost enormously and
Yeah.
already have. Like, we're already seeing that fly through the roof, especially in that country they call America.
Yeah. But it's not, this week was the anniversary of James Hook coming home. So I think the two are comparable, to be honest.
Largely the same, actually. Largely
Yeah.
the same, yeah. In that it's someone who we weren't quite sure what position they were going to play.
And still not right now,
Yeah.
even after one of them's retired. Uh, so yeah, it's two of us this week, myself and Robbie. Yestin is slaving away over some video editing. Robbie
A
feels
very relatable thing. Yeah.
yeah,
I've been there. I was there earlier today.
fun.
The greatest fun.
Is it European Cup related or Autumn Nations related?
Oh, it's the Ireland Australia video. There's every chance it'll go up whilst we're recording. I'm waiting for an email from Squarespace to say I can put it up.
Does it include the James Ryan stinker chat that how he's
It doesn't. It doesn't, because I tend to save that for here. I need some hot
as you
exclusives
should.
to the Ospreys Eyrie, mostly about how, as Josh Gardner pointed out on Blood and Mud,
Yeah.
that every Lions tour, James Ryan's form just nosedives as Adam Beard finds himself on the way back up. And we are headed back into an absolutely peak discourse point. As Beard's due back, early Six Nations, he's due back sort of, February-ish?
Oh yeah.
So could potentially make the Six Nations, play in the big European Cup knockout games like James Ryan won't be, and make the Lions tour well ahead of him, like with money in the bank.
Currently on Fraud Watch are the Stormers, Benetton, and James Ryan. They're the ones on Fraud Watch currently. Finally, his dynasty is being shot down. But no, Yestin is not. Although if it was up to him, he would be putting together an Adam Beard mispass compilation. But he's slaving away over some video editing software. We were hoping to bring you an interview tonight, but that's been pushed to a date that I need to confirm. What I can confirm is that I've spoken to another guest today, which will be a really, really exciting interview when I get that over the line. So keep your eyes peeled for that.
Also, well worth saying hello and thank you to people who this pod has popped up in their Spotify Wrapped. I've seen a couple of them.
That's weird.
Most notably, Bethan from the Ospreys themselves.
Yeah, I got that text message as well.
Yeah. Still hasn't watched Marry Me, which is fine. She's a busy woman. There's a lot to do, But yeah, it's podcast, isn't it? I'm amazed that people listen. Never mind listen every single week, and never mind listen, enough more than other podcasts.
For context, Bethan is one of the staff members at the Ospreys. She's in the marketing team, or she is the marketing team.
Yeah.
And She texts us both separately today. Look, she's got 3 podcasts in her
And you're on
Spotify
2 of them.
wrap up. One of them is us. Yeah, I'm on 2 of them. One of them is us, and the other one's I can't remember what it's called, but it's
We don't need
basically
to
about being a
reveal her
sad woman.
entire.
The whole thing, that was the gist. I searched it up as well. This was the worst thing, and she texted me, according to my Spotify, I'm just a sad woman who loves rugby.
Yeah.
That's what that
I mean,
perfectly
look,
describes me.
look, my Spotify thinks exactly the same thing of me.
Yeah, I haven't even looked at my podcast. My
No.
Spotify rap is a mess because it reveals just how little I listen to music now.
Mm.
So
I use Apple Music because I'm one of those. Um, but for the 4th year in a row, my most listened to song is a song called "Ah" by Teen Jesus and the Gene Teasers, an Australian all-female punk band. Because um, my entire taste in music is queer Australian women shouting, and there's a lot of that out there if you're prepared to dig in.
mine, I'll have to find my podcast. It doesn't come in my podcast one. Where is it? I'll find it. I'll find it at some point. I'll tweet it out. But I bet mine
Rap,
will
Ospreys,
likely,
Eyrie,
no,
number one
mine
and
will
two.
likely be Dragon's Lair
Ah.
because for some reason I only listen to them on Spotify, but they do good interviews.
Mm.
Okay, this has been an intro even for us. Um, we're trying to avoid talking about the weekend
Yeah,
already.
I don't blame us. I wouldn't want to listen to it if I were a listener. I would be turning it off my Spotify Wrapped, taking it away.
Firstly, big thank you to Sam for filling in last week.
Yes.
Wonderful lady.
And
Uh,
fantastic Christmas chat at the end.
Fantastic Christmas chat. What is your favorite Christmas film? Is it Muppets?
It's Wonderful Life, then Muppets Christmas
Okay,
Carol. Yeah.
okay. My
It's Wonderful Life
fingers.
might be my favorite film. It's like that and Singing in the Rain would be my 2
You
favorite
and
films.
you and Ted Lasso.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love it. I could talk about It's Wonderful Life for hours. Then Die Hard. I mentioned there's a film called Tangerine, which is phenomenal, by Sean Baker, who made Nora recently. With the Florida
Hmm.
Project, which is the best. If you want a recommendation for Christmas movie, many people won't have seen, is the best Christmas revenge movie about transgender prostitutes you'll ever see.
That's a niche. That is a
Yeah.
niche. Um, yeah. So big thank you to Sam. Go listen to Guys in the Black Feather.
Mm.
News.
Yes.
Let's talk about transfer news first. On the rumor mill. On the rumor mill, we go to something I called ages ago. I did say on this podcast, I'm pretty sure that we should be looking at this guy, and that is son of former Tonga winger and the scorer of the first ever Ospreys try,
Yeah.
Tavita Tueti or David Tueti. Um, he is a former Tom Mauer, Neath, and Ospreys player. So yeah, here's his son, David Reese Tueti, and someone said, "Well, he's West qualified." I was like, "Okay." He was born in Nice. You can't be more West qualified than that.
Yeah, born in Wales, whilst obviously his dad hadn't been at Neath, then at the Ospreys,
Mm.
has lived in England since he was 5 or 6.
Mm.
So he's qualified for England at the minute as well, qualified for Tonga as well, obviously.
Yeah.
But it said apparently he always has had aspirations of representing Wales as the country of his birth, as where he was kind of, you know, he first discovered rugby, where he got to watch his dad play. So potentially very exciting. Also a great addition to um the narrow field of Nottingham Ospreys, my favorite category, alongside Matt
The small
Jarvis,
Venn diagram.
yeah, Connor Moyes. I did make a list at one point. There's not many of them, but also went to Cardiff Met as well. So has been back to Wales and has continued his links up with Wales. By all accounts, was brilliant for Nottingham when there. Then has moved to Coventry, where again there was an interview with him with Rugby Pass, where he said that basically he was as part of the case, Nottingham had their budget slashed enormously by the RFU because they
Hmm.
had to pay for another yacht for Bill Sweeney. And in that a lot of their players end up doing like community work and so on as like part of initiative so they could build other money, so you're spending a lot of the day coaching and being like a rugby consultant at schools and stuff. And I said, like, since moving to Coventry, his form has gone up enormously because he's been able to rest and recover. Much the same. You look at the women's team, who a lot of them were in the same situations. So, yeah, would be great to see him back. We need more center depth. Like that is pretty
He's
vital.
13 as well, which is
Yeah.
key. Which is key. Um, so I followed him through Cardiff Met actually. I was still big into my, and I need to talk to Dave Rogers about this because he'll know
Mm.
more. But firstly, he is fucking huge, and he was at uni as well. Um, like you said, he was semi-pro at Nottingham, so
Mm.
you know, since he's gone to Coventry, his conditioning's gone up. Um, he's bigger. He's probably playing the better rugby. Um, and yeah, you want that. That's what you want. I
Yeah.
think Coventry's been titled the finishing school recently. There's a lot of good players that come out of that squad. So it's worth keeping an eye on. I think you know to be
And
selfish.
to note there as well, Coventry are currently top of the Premiership, top of the
Yeah,
Championship. They're having an incredible season. They're unbeaten so far. They've actually
good,
applied for Premiership place this season,
good
just
Prem
today.
Cup campaign as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. What they beat Leicester at
Yeah,
Walford Road, which is something, he's very used to doing Ospreys things already.
yeah.
Um, so it is, a player on top form for a
Mm.
club that is on fire at the level below and deserves his opportunity. And as you said, I suspect there'll be more players from this Coventry that get snapped up if they don't get promoted next season. And
I mean, they've got Daniel Okiki, who is my favorite Munster Academy player. You remember what that game against Wasps they had?
oh
He was
yeah,
fantastic in that.
yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah,
there.
big lad.
Yeah, big boy. Um, so yeah, that's ongoing. Scarlets are said to also be tracking him, but
Mm,
to be quite selfish, they've got centre options.
yes, yes, they do.
Like, come on,
They're not
share some
reliant
out.
on Keith playing every minute
Yeah.
ever.
Then yeah, then they're not, putting Owen Watkin in cryostasis every week.
Do you want the
So
full list, as far as I can find, of Nottingham Ospreys so far?
go on.
So Matt Jarvis, Filippo Levy,
Yeah.
Ifemi Boladow, Daryl Martho, and current man of the moment, Phil Singer. And we could be adding another name to that list. We could have an all. Oh, and then Connor Moyes, obviously, um,
And Conor Moyes. Yeah.
can be added to the list.
Yeah. That's a good. We should do. There could be a lot of.
We could do crossover of Ospreys and Scarlets players that played together. People that play for both. That would go on for a while.
Yep. So there's that on the rumor mill. Nothing else has come across. Honestly, genuinely, nothing else has come across my desk in terms of a rumor mill. This is how
Mm,
dry it is at the minute.
yeah.
Um,
There is one
nothing.
huge piece of news that we haven't talked
Go
about
on.
yet. So this was in the Ospreys obviously send out a weekly midweek newsletter.
Okay.
Um, and this is in that newsletter, and I think it's a huge, huge deal that Dewi Lake has got a new watch.
Yeah. That
It
some people on X will complain that he hasn't declared on his taxes, which is a genuine conversation that happened not long ago.
really,
Yeah, I'm not
this is
kidding.
why I left. I've just done other things.
It's
I
the
don't
fact.
need to see that conversation.
It reminds me of the Harry Deeves thing, and it could well apply to Dewi Lake, where he literally went, "I can't tell the time."
Yeah.
Do you reckon Dewi Lake, when he gets pulled off for Wales, is always sort of angry?
Whoa, what? When what?
Yeah,
Sorry.
sorry, when he gets pulled off the field, at 56 minutes, you reckon he gets really angry because he can't actually tell the time, so he doesn't know how long he's been on the field?
Or he thinks it's 80 minutes. No, I think Dewi
Yeah,
Lake can probably tell the time.
he'd probably tell the time off.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, so Dewi Lake's got a new watch. So yeah, he
Yep.
was the player of the month, joining the likes of Ryan Combier. I tell you what is out now, is we have now declared our European squad.
Okay. Yeah.
So your likes of Adam Beard. So I'll go through it. It's Adam Beard, Ivardi Boshoff, Tom Boter, the Cockney Welshman, Freddie Chapman, Phil Singer, Ryan Combier, Luke Davis, Reese Davis, the cunt, Tristan Davis, Harry Deeves, Lewis Edwards, the 6'4", 17-year-old fullback, Dan Edwards, Liam Edwards, big lock, Owen Erasmus,
Mm.
who is a 17-year-old, could be 18 now, fly half out of Millfield, who was in the same team as all these generational Cardiff players that they brought back this season to go into the senior academy. He played a lot of
That's the
fullback
really
there.
interesting standout one, isn't it? Because he's one we haven't heard anything about. Obviously there were bits with
No,
him
I can't. I don't
pre-season,
even know where he's
but
playing,
yeah.
and it's
But
really
all the
interesting.
others we've seen popping up either in game, most of them pretty much in games, even if it's just
Yeah.
the Dragons friendly and the preseason Origin series, or
Mm.
we've heard bits about them in training. But Owen Erasmus was a little bit about at the start of the season, but he is clearly rated incredibly highly if he's essentially included as the fourth fly half.
Yes, he. I do need to get back to my friend. Ford Cooksley, who is coach at Swansea University Women's. He's coached the University Men's. Was a coach at Millfield though, so I need to get back to him to see because I'm not actually sure where he is because
I
you
do
had the go on.
no. In the increasingly likely scenario that we have three injuries at fly half, Owen Williams, Dan Edwards, and Jack Walsh are all ruled out. Knowing our luck, this is coming.
Yeah.
Do you think that for, the week after his game against Montpellier, they throw Owen Erasmus right in at 10 as the only specialist fly half in that
Well,
squad?
this is what I was about to say now because I need to check if he's in there. The a guy I really like who was the under 18s fly half last year
Mm,
was at Aberavon, but it's been loaned out to a club beneath, which is, still a
mm,
thing, is Charlie Thomas, who's I thought was
yeah,
really nice, some really nice touches, but he's not in the squad.
no.
So you've got to think like, where does he fall in? It, yeah, it's the answer because we have to. It's very hard.
Well,
I'm of the
no, I
understanding
think,
it's very
no,
hard.
the obvious answer is Tips plays 10.
Well,
But
yeah,
failing that, but the question becomes, Max Nagy played under 18s at 10. Do you
hmm
throw him in? Do you look at someone
you
more?
can
Do
look
you play a scrum half at 10?
at Harry Houston.
Yeah. I mean, that feels like even more of a push. I think in that scenario, it's either you try and play with three centers and you
Mm.
try and change the game plan there. And you just hope that, I think Kieran Hardy can kick goals. Or yeah, you just throw Owen Erasmus in, which would be a hell of a baptism of fire. But it shows the
Mm.
situation we're in, right? That
Are you
you
looking at
look
the
at
squad
this.
right now?
Yeah, yeah, I've got it in front of me. Yeah.
Have you scrolled down to Scott Whitlock, who looks like a child on work experience?
Yes.
Scott's a lovely guy, right? He's come out of Aberavon
He,
system, really nice, but he looks like a child.
yeah. He the shirt doesn't quite fit him properly. It's kind of
No.
hanging off his shoulders a bit in very like he makes that professional rugby kit look a bit like a supermarket shirt. That's
Yeah,
him.
he's working the little Christmas sale.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and who else looks good in these? Phil Singer is a very handsome man.
He truly is.
Yeah, so Dan Edwards, Fender, Florence, Dan Jermaine, Keelan Giles, Will Greatbanks, Will Griff, Kieran Hardy, Big Sexy, Kian Hire. So he didn't feature in any of the games
Mm.
over. They didn't feature in the development games, so interesting. He's still in there. Yeston Hopkins, Harry Houston, Matt, Cameron Jones, Lewis Jones, Dan Casende, Dewey Lake, Ethan Lewis, Corey Lewis Jenkins, the most handsome hooker in the world, Lewis Lloyd, Luke Morgan, Jack Morgan, Ruben, Morgan Morris, Morgan Morse. Obviously, he's back for injury. in the
The
Scarlets
Scarlet
game.
game. Yeah.
Conor Moyes, Max Nagy, Sam Parry, Garen Phillips, James Ratty, Luke Scully, Hugh Sutton, Gar Tom, Steph Tom, Reese Thomas, the Aberravan,
Lock.
Locke, Justin Tipuric, Jack Walsh, Ben Warren, Owen Watkins, Scott Whitlock, Keith, and Owen Williams. So yeah, pretty standard squad. Like I
Yeah.
said, the Erasmus one is the really interesting one for me.
There is a thing. If you go over a lot of teams, their squads are filled up by players that play regularly. And it does show the fact that we've got players in, Freddie Chapman hasn't played first team
No,
rugby for the Ospreys yet. Lewis Edwards hasn't played first team rugby. Liam Edwards, I think, has maybe had a game on the. No, he hasn't, has he?
no, he
He
hasn't
hasn't been
yet.
involved. Erasmus obviously hasn't been involved. Dan Gemi had, 10 minutes off the bench.
Mhm.
Cian Hyler hasn't been involved. Cam Jones, again, has had, 2 games off the bench. It becomes, as you scroll, Corey Lewis Jenkins hasn't played a competitive game. As you scroll through that, Connor Moyes, likewise, the squad is full of players like them, like Reese Thomas, who,
Mm.
Scott Whitlock, who haven't played competitive rugby, like we are absolutely padding the squad out with youngsters. And that is a little bit of a worry, but also it is exactly where we have been for some time. And
Mm.
it's just looking at it, it brings it into even more sharp relief when you click on, pretty much any other squad for any other club. And they are just packed, other than the Welsh regions, of the other regions, and they are packed with guys who've played, 30 games of professional rugby.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Scarlets ones now,
Mm.
and it's full of players who are absolutely made up.
But like scrolling through
Like,
Gloucester as a random example, right? Of elsewhere in the Challenge Cup, there are 4 players that I don't know that I haven't heard of. Like it is to a man. The depth of their you know, their
mm.
squad runs much deeper. Almost all of the other squads do.
Let's look at this in the scope of how many of these have we had a drink with in Teagues? Because it's most of this academy squad.
Yeah,
Um,
but no. Um, but no, I think obviously we've got a strong squad.
mm,
We have like a 23 that can compete with anyone, and we
agree.
have the pathway in Wales that is producing the best young players and the young players that are most capable of stepping up to elite level quickest. And that
Mm,
is the most important thing. I think the Scarlets and Cardiff both produce some incredibly talented youngsters. The Ospreys have produced youngsters that can come straight in and perform at the top level. And that is essentially what has mattered over the last couple of years, is that ability to bring through players like Morgan Morse, like Dan Edwards, and bring them straight in. And in the first 5 games, they're performing at the top level, where I think the other regions have been perhaps slower in bringing players through in their first kind of 6 months professional rugby.
mm.
And that's the thing that makes me look at the squad and go, okay, there is less depth there. There's a bunch of players that haven't played much, but I trust if we are forced to use them, or if Booth chooses to use them, then they can step up.
Oh, absolutely. Um, who is this? So I was looking through the Dragons one, and they've got a
Mm,
top prop called Paolo Latu, who I've never heard of.
me neither.
This will be right. Sorry, that's for another. That's for offline nosing. Um, Dragons doing a sneaky one and just signing Tongan props. Okay. Uh, very quickly then, it has leaked this week of the deal that has been put forward to the regions. In
Mm,
essence, it gives the WIU and the COE, so the Centre of Excellence, which is essentially the head coach.
yeah, and the other,
Unpre-
key coaches,
yeah.
so head of conditioning and
Um,
so on.
that Jonathan Humphreys struggles to write his name. He's not having control of anyone. Um, Basically, unprecedented control um, over over the regions in exchange for like wiping the debt, essentially.
Mm,
Um, on reflection, I sort of muted my reaction and said this is just genuinely staggering in terms of I can't believe what I'm reading. On
mm,
reflection, I don't think. I think most of the terms are fine. I think people have short memories. If you remember National Dual Contracts,
yeah.
they were a lot worse in terms of what they proposed for players than what this is proposing.
Mm,
might I remind you that James King had an NDC. Um, but yeah, so in that sense, I don't think what they're proposing, or most of the things they're proposing, aren't too bad. I think there are things like expecting owners to put up, I think, is it 22 million in the next 5 years?
Yeah.
That's not going to go down well. Um, and other stuff. What has been said from an Ospreys point of view is that Lance Bradley came out and said, "Look, he's not going to comment on a leaked document." But he's reiterated that he would never sign anything off for the Ospreys unless they felt it was for the best.
Hmm.
There are lots of rumors out there as of now, right now. The two that I've heard is that Scarlets and Cardiff are the ones who want to sign it. Have signed it.
Hmm.
Um, Not everything has been leaked. Um, yeah. So look, these are all speculations, but I
Yeah.
trust Lance in the fact that he won't sign anything off
Yeah.
that he doesn't feel is the best interest. What interesting is,
I
I think, is if we still had Garcia, I feel like he would have signed this off.
yeah.
That's the difference. Or I think people get frustrated with Lance, especially around the booth thing, right? But
I I think a lot of it is because Lance is very visible and outspoken. And that leads to him having a reputation in a way. Nick Garcia was behind the scenes and we never saw or heard from him
yeah,
and until he left. And actually the accountability of Lance Bradley, yes, it's led to some people going, all this, all that. But ultimately, it means we know who he is. We know his character. We know we can ultimately trust him. And I do feel like I trust him to make the right decision for the club, for the region, and for rugby within Wales as a whole, but particularly, the
we,
Australia. And when you look at that deal, I think to look at it from a completely kind of stood still point of view, most of it is a positive. Bringing those um, budgets up is important. Bringing in, there's a lot of these things that you look at and go, well, they could backfire or whatever. But there's a lot of it that is frankly things that have already been happening. They're just being codified, in terms of the way the W has input over this and that. And the head coach having perhaps say over a position used to happen much more. It's happened less over the last couple of years, but, you know, there will be just codified versions of deals that already exist. Um, and the point that gets made repeatedly around the players of national interest being potentially moved to another club. Um, the, Ultimately, right, that decision comes down to the player. Dan Edwards was supposedly advised to move to Cardiff and said no, right? We have every reason to believe that will continue to be the case, that the player in question will be given
yeah,
that situation and will make those decisions. And what is important is the Ospreys have built a atmosphere and a club that players want to stay at, and where these young players that come through know it is the best place for them to develop and know it is the best place for them to kick on and get to work with the best quality coaching that they, have in Wales, particularly forwards. And that is the important thing, and by bringing up the budgets, we'll be able to better create that environment and create a club that is winning more games and is an even more tantalizing place to want to remain. Um, the other side of this, though, is that this situation was created by the WAU themselves by passing that debt onto the regions, by signing them up for those hideous, high interest loans over the pandemic that were such drastically worse deals than the English Premiership sides took out, than the Scottish sides were given by the, Scottish government. And the WU was essentially handed and created this situation over 5 years for the regions, in which they forced them into the situation by putting them in an awful financial position through those deals, through lowering the budgets, through forcing them into this kind of borderline obsolescence, and now is managing to buy these stakes in them essentially through having torn them apart for a few years. And that is the bit that doesn't sit well with me, is the way we've got into this situation. From the situation we're in, if you ignore the past, I think the deal makes sense and fine, whatever. The history that's led us here, however, does make you wonder whether we can trust the people higher up or whether there is more scheming and more planning or more whatever, or if this is what's actually, going ahead. And I do believe when, the Abby Tierney's and Richard Collier was and so on in the world say we want 4 regions, I think, like, again, I've said it before countless times, 4 regions is vital. Like, you are not only losing a development pathway in a professional team, you are losing access to professional rugby and the interest of that region, and that is something Welsh rugby cannot afford at the minute with the state and the kind of apathy that's begun to set in around the national team in particular. But yeah, I think I'm going on a lot. I don't mean to, continue going on.
No, I fully agree.
But I think there is, I think the deal makes sense from where we are now. I think I wouldn't be against at all if the powers that be at the Ospreys, who have full version of this, and again, I'm sure there's lots of details and clauses and so on that we haven't seen, perhaps they haven't hammered out yet. There'll be things altered and changed by the time this goes through, if it does. And I trust they will make the right decision for the club, because I do trust virtually everyone in positions of power at the moment within the Ospreys. I do think, despite obviously where we look on the USC table, I feel we're in a decent place overall as an organization, as a club. And despite, whatever former centers are saying on other podcasts. But yeah, the other interesting point is the S&C thing, which I think is fascinating.
Which Booth addressed in the press conference.
Yes. And I thought, and again, I don't mean to, throw anyone under a bus here, but Booth's response to that was much more mature and smart than Gatlin's initial take, which was just they're not conditioned well enough. And Booth said in the press conference, essentially, you need to be conditioned for the game you want to play. If you want to play a power game, you're going to be conditioned one way. If you want to play a fast game, you're going to be conditioned another way. If you want to try and outlast the opposition, you'd be conditioned a different way. And what Wales had is a team of players who are conditioned in 3 different ways, and Gatlin's trying to get them to play a 4th way. And I think this was a big issue with Wales in the autumn, is they weren't fit enough to play the game plan they were trying to play. And I think it's a very well-raised point, but that becomes, do the WOU force all 4 regions in a backwards way to play a similar style of rugby to Wales, whatever the head coach at that point, whoever that might be, wants them to play, because they're going to be forced to be conditioned in that way? That becomes the question. That becomes the interesting kind of, from a pure rugby point of view, that becomes the interesting question.
It's a really interesting thing. You look at, like, so if you look at condition, right, the big thing that's come out in the last few years is Rhys Carré, right?
Yeah.
And the idea that Rhys Carré does these amazing things so well, but Gatlin says essentially he's too fat, right? And we've seen that today with Jake White throwing Kane Moody under the bus, for saying he's a step away from the buffet table. Ospreys fans for years, post 2017, jibed at Reece Webb because of how slow he became overnight. You look at condition, but then you look at the conditioning. Say last year for the Ospreys, I think we looked a really fit team last year. I think for the game plan we wanted to play, I think we're excellent at it. And I always come back to the 2013 Lions tour. Do you remember Adam Beard? Not that one.
Yes, yeah. The other Adam Beard.
Yeah, he was the strength and conditioning coach. And you could tell that what he had that Lions team doing was, I am going to get you to your peak fitness from what we need. And that's not what the S&C is doing right now for Wales. Like you said, they're trying to condition these players for a game plan that, A, they're struggling to play skill-wise, and B, they're not fit enough. I think it'd be morally wrong to say that an Ospreys player needs to be as fit as Cardiff in terms of how they want to play. I
Yeah,
think that's wrong. I think you're essentially asking all four teams to do what what Wales want. It's like Leinster and Ireland, right? Leinster and
yeah,
Ireland essentially play the same way, so it's easy. You look at when the 13 Ospreys got picked, Wales didn't play like the Ospreys.
yeah,
They played like Wales.
yeah,
So I just yeah, but I think the maturity of it is really, really telling.
yeah. It wasn't just a better, it was an actually, we've got to weigh this up from a nuanced point of view.
Yeah. Right. Do we want to talk about the game, or do you want me to do good
I
play?
No, I think we should talk about the game. Let's talk about the game. We held it back long enough.
Okay. So this was the worst we've played under Toby Booth since he took over.
I think it might be. I think it's up there or
I
down
think
there, I
I
suppose.
can't think of any
I,
apart from
I,
Gloucester away, but that was
I
for a
no, I think even that was. I think that was better. I think physically we were, there. I think it was this and that Munster game, a couple of years ago where we had the record loss
on the
and Tyrone
58-3.
Park. Yeah, yeah. I think it's those two are for me the two worst performances under Booth. I think for 70 minutes there was absolutely nothing to recommend us.
Yeah.
Obviously the one Kazende try stands out, but I thought they were loose and sort of aimless and physically not really there, and the breakdown was an utter mess. Um,
Hmm.
I thought it was a hugely just disappointing performance. I think they looked tired, which has been a
Yeah,
problem all season.
we looked shagged.
Yeah, which wasn't great. Um, and again, like you don't want to pick out individuals, but I think like the fact that as your halfbacks, I thought Kieran Hardy looked like he'd only just come back from an injury, and obviously he's had a few
Yeah,
weeks back now,
100%. That's what I was about to say.
and he looked like he was still settling back into the game. And then alongside him, if you had someone, you want an experienced 10. I get why they've gone for that. And I just thought Owen Williams had a stinker. And it's just one of those things that happens every so often. But I I thought
The
he had
one
a
thing
yeah.
I thought he kicked really well.
Mm,
I thought he had a stinker in every other part of the game,
that's
but I
fair.
thought he
Yeah.
kicked really well.
Yeah.
And considering that's a low bar for where Owen Williams has been, and if you go and watch the documentary series, he's clearly really respected in that locker room,
Yeah.
and he's a confidence player. And I actually think he kicked like really, really well.
Yeah.
I just think he did every part of the game badly.
I think there's this thing that teams have worked out very much how to defend him, which is that he is an incredibly floaty distributor. In that he doesn't
Mm,
really engage anyone. He kind of like takes the ball and weighs it up and waits, and that gives defenses a lot of time to respond to what he does. Um, and if it's a team, it depends on how the opposition defends. But sometimes that's incredibly useful. But against Ulster, they ate it up all day long. And again, here, like I just think they were incredibly, they wanted to be aggressive. And Williams gave them a chance to do that because he doesn't, look to engage players directly. He looks to weigh up the space around him and weigh up the game around him. As you mentioned, like you look at the documentary, he's an incredible rugby brain. Clearly, he's going to make an absolutely brilliant coach one day and understands the game better than probably any other player in the squad, with the possible exception of Justin Tipperick. But is just like I think had a difficult game. Um, and that's not to single him out, but it becomes that issue of if your scrum isn't performing and your halfbacks aren't firing, then this team is not set up to play fancy, flashy, exciting, all attack rugby.
mhm.
Suddenly, you are not getting far up the field at all, And actually, when we
Wait,
got into
sorry. Can I stop
22s,
you there?
yeah,
Breaking news.
okay.
Kingsley Jones has left Canada.
No,
Yeah.
you're kidding.
I'm not joking.
No. Okay. This has been so long coming. Oh, I can't believe it. Oh, that's the
Free my
best news we'll get all year. That's phenomenal. That's fantastic. Oh man,
This
this has
is
been
the
so
greatest
overdue.
podcast ever. Free my man Taylor Argeron. He can go play for Canada again.
I don't know how he slept at night, man. Like he was. I think Kingsley Jones has done the worst job that
He's the
anyone has
worst
ever
coach I've
done at
ever.
international level.
It's
That
between
is
him and Martin
phenomenal.
Johnson.
Honestly, this is much worse than Martin Johnson. Like Martin Johnson still won a Six Nations in that time,
That's true,
but
yeah.
he, I mean, like the Kingsley Jones man took that Canada team from being like within 7 points of beating Italy, pushing, like giving France a proper game, almost beating Scotland, to suddenly like losing by 52 to Chile.
Yeah.
Like this is completely off topic, but that is
No, sorry, listeners, but this is something we feel very strongly about.
I do. Like I had a piece we were preparing to do like once Canada are out of camp for November on the state of this and trying to see if we could get change to happen. Um, because we've heard some stories about how poor it was going behind the scenes. Um, so we'll have to work out what we do with that now, whether we just try and tell the story anyway. But
Yeah. Sorry for listeners of deep analytical pieces of Zebra Ospreys, but you know, the reason Taylor Ardron didn't play for Canada was because of him.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
right, yeah. Going back to the Zebra game, um, if you look at the stats, right, and Alice Jenkins said
Mm,
this on S4C English comms, and you didn't see the score, you'd think this was like a 31-12 win to the Ospreys, right? 100% line out, you know, 57% territory. Um, we 100% line out, 75% scrum. You know, off 146 carries, you get 289 post contact meters. That's basically what 2 meters a carry, essentially.
yeah.
You'd think that's a win, right? We turned the ball over 14 times.
Wow. Yeah. That breakdown was not a mess though. So even when they weren't
Oh,
losing turnovers, it was just disrupted constantly. And there was no quick ball. There was very little ability to play off.
yeah.
It became a nightmare. Something Booth identified immediately after the game, but
Mhm.
they did such a great job of just disrupting it.
If I were the Ospreys this week, I'd be on the phone to the Urk and be like, what was the decision making for the referee behind some of the decisions of the breakdown?
But I think at the same time, if the referee is
Yeah,
doing that, you've got to do it yourself. You've either
exactly.
got to
And
adapt
we've
or
generally been quite good at that. This
yeah,
is what I get. We're normally really good at reaction to what happens at a breakdown,
yeah.
but we just struggled, man. And I don't know what it. I've never seen us be so outmuscled at the breakdown. Like as a booth thing, we do generally sometimes struggle at the breakdown. Um. So. hmm, it was a tough night. I think everything. I think it was a combination of bad luck, things like drop balls or whatever, but we just didn't play well as well. Everything that could have gone went wrong
Yeah.
in that sense.
I
Whether it
I think
standout performers,
yeah, I think there are. I think Harry Deves, as ever, had a really good game.
yeah,
I think Cassandre was solid. I think Jack Walsh was actually very good quietly from the
yeah.
back, as was
Keelan
Keelan
Giles, I thought
Giles
really
whenever
good.
they got a moment.
The back three was
Um,
good.
and then I think like Fender and Morris both put in really solid performances, like
Yeah,
the standard we expect from them. Like to say Fender was coming back his first game. But then I think the big positive,
11
really,
minute breaks.
yeah, which is fantastic. Like, and to say he's running the line out, he's calling the line out as well. He is very much the Adam Beard protege. And yeah,
Mhm,
fantastic to see him back and him kind of take those shoes. If we are losing Beard next season, then to see him
mhm,
able to step in and do that is fantastic. But I think, if anything, the biggest positive out this game, and I think there are kind of two things, is the big positive is the way the bench came on and made an impact. And you look at that bench, and ostensibly, it is much weaker than the starting 15 because it's players that played fewer games, it's young players who haven't had much experience. There's two fullbacks, and yet they came on and pretty much all of them made the difference. I thought Yeston Hopkins was absolutely fantastic when he came on, and Tristan Davis was very good as well. And that is the big positive, is those players coming on and doing something and creating some impact and allowing you to change the game. Because ultimately, we talk about the find a way thing, right? And it didn't happen at the weekend, and I saw people saying like, "Oh, the Ospreys have lost their ability to find a way." I think in some ways we did. This was our worst performance. This was one of our two or three worst performances in the last 4 years, and we still managed to get a point out of that game. Like
Mm.
that is a finding a way moment as much as anything. And you've kind of got to look at the season, right? And I think there's been a couple of people saying our season's over. Actually, they're tougher fixtures, but we're still roughly in line with what we got in equivalent fixtures last year, in terms of we got 1 point in the game away in Italy last year against Benetton. And if we can beat Benetton at home, then suddenly that starts to equal out. And like we could have
Yeah.
really done with this win, but it isn't the end of the world by any means. And if our baseline is we're still able to get a point out of it, there is still something there. And I think all of these players are better than that performance. And a lot of rust has probably been shaken off. And the best thing out of it probably is that we're heading into Europe now, which has always been a bit of a reset. It's always been something, this team has enjoyed and looked forward to as its own separate event. And it's a shame that we're playing a team we play in the ERG and we played so many times over the last 12 months.
Yeah, this is the thing.
But, I kind of wish we had someone completely different that they could get themselves up for. I wish we had the Montpellier game first. But, it gives you a chance to fire yourselves up and get into it. And I don't I don't think this is the end of the world. I don't think there's been a lot. I think some people have been tempted to read too much into this. I said this at the start of the season. I thought the number of points required to get into the top 8 was going to come down quite drastically because the teams at the bottom, the three teams at the bottom being Scarlets, Dragons, and Zebra last year, I thought all of them will win more games this year. That has already proven to be the case. Or the Dragons win as many games. And we're going to see that continue, right? And this won't be the last scalp Zebre take this season. And we've got to kind of accept that there are now 16 good teams in the URC. There are
We need
16
to stop
teams
treating
capable
Zebra
of beating
like
anyone.
shit as well. That's a bloody
Yeah,
talented, like
like
Priscatelli, fantastic. They've got some really, really good, talented.
yeah.
Um, they got
Munster
some
finished.
really talented people.
They finished bottom of the league last year. Munster finished top, and they beat Munster a few months ago. Like this league is the most even it's ever been. It is the most even, like top to bottom league in rugby. And I suppose I know Saracens were beaten by Newcastle at the weekend, but and also
I
that
say
league's
this,
like six
good thing for
people.
rugby
There's
though.
like six
It's a good
teams
thing
in
for rugby.
Premiership. Yeah, absolutely. Like I I don't think it's worth getting too carried away with. It was an incredibly depressing thing, in the moment. But yeah, I think you make some changes. Some of them tactical and small. A lot of them are just like tiny details in terms of how we run in the 22. There's some of the
Yeah.
moves and execution down there were quite shit, especially in the first half.
Hmm.
And a lot of it is just taking other opposition players off the feet and making sure we're tying people in and being quite careful about when you pick and go. And also, there's one quick tap we took that went horribly, horribly badly. But and also, just understanding when the maul isn't working. The loss of the scrum has been huge. The fact that that is less of a weapon now we've lost Nicky Smith. But if Garsom's coming back
Yeah.
in next weekend, that becomes very different. I did have some hope that maybe, I think Ben Warren went pretty well off the bench, but that Duncan having some time with these players has allowed them to improve. But equally, if we don't have the training numbers to be doing live scrums that often, then what can we be feasibly improving? So
Yeah.
yeah, I've gone all around in circles an awful lot. I think it was a terrible performance, but I think all these players are better than this. I don't think this is our standard. I think this is the baseline, and the baseline still got us a point.
I think Owen Watkin played well, actually, in
Yeah,
defence.
yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah,
Um, Again, I just think we were playing on the back. We were reactive rather than proactive. I think we need to go. I think a lot is made about the scrum and lineup. I think what the big disappointment for me this season is how inefficient we are.
yeah,
We were really good. I think we were top in the ERG and up there in Europe. Of every time we went into 22, we came out with 3, 5, or 7
yeah,
without fail. We need to get back to that. That's what we need to be doing.
yeah. But I think the other issue is that we aren't getting into the 22 enough. it's all well and
Yes.
good converting every time, but if you're only getting down there twice or three times a game, that is an issue. That second half in particular, for the first half hour of that second half, we weren't getting into the 22. And that becomes an issue when the kicking, the two key kickers in your team aren't doing it, aren't having a great game. Your attack isn't built for that, and then particularly if you're built on your set piece working, your set piece has to function in order for you to do that. And it wasn't. And you take the scrum out of the equation and suddenly this team crumbles. Like you look at the Stormers also down the bottom end of the table, like when the same number of points, when 11 points. The Ospreys and Stormers have, I think, the second and third worst, or
Mm.
most scrum penalties against them in the URC this season, which comes from both of them missing key players, but also still being in that kind of habit of keeping the ball in scrums so that you're
Yeah,
looking
get
for
it out.
penalty. Yeah, which invites the referee into it and causes, you know, um, potentially decisions to go against you. And we've got to be more conservative over sometimes our scrum is going to go backwards and we have to know when to get it out, but also hopefully keep building those more and more props and making big signings. Like Tom Francis on a 2-year deal. Can we get him back? That'd be huge. And there's plenty of other players floating. Like Archie Griffin obviously signed a new deal with Bath, but like he's now first choice for Wales. He probably wants to be playing in Wales to keep that spot up and keep himself eligible. I don't know.
But you think, yeah, it'd be interesting. What's really interesting is where what the recruitment is for Mark Jones. I really want to see
Yeah,
what he does with this squad in terms of how he's going to evolve it. Is he going to keep the core of that Boothyism way of playing, or is he going to try and rip it up?
yeah,
So yeah, look, it's done. I think yeah, people need to calm down a bit. I
yeah.
think we were quite emotive, especially in and as I said on Monday on Rap, in the context of the week, it's very hard because
Sure.
as you
Yeah.
said in the chat, every loss feels like you don't have it. It's one step closer to not having a team to cheer for.
That's the thing. It's like in a week where all the talk leading into it was about let's get rid of the Ospreys, for them then to lose the bottom of the table several years in a row does make you feel like, oh, okay, right, that's just going to intensify it. Ultimately, right, the WU proposals continue. They want 4 teams. Having 3 teams is incredibly short-sighted. And this, everything, all the noises we hear, right, St. Helens is happening. Things are building. There's looks, if anything, into expanding the team, having more age grade stuff, having more academy pathways, having more like community outreach, having the women's program come in. There is a bright future building here, and that is worth believing in. And this team is still worth getting behind,
Mm.
undoubtedly for me. And I know I will be, every game for the foreseeable, for so long as there continues to be a shirt for me to wear and support.
So I think that's it. I think it's done. Let's draw a line under it.
As Canada just said to Kingsley Jones, I can't
Yep.
believe that. It's made
Yep.
my week.
Right. Let's do good player.
Okay.
Okay, Robbie.
Hello.
What were you doing in 2011?
2011. So that was the Rugby World Cup.
Yeah.
I started sixth form. Yeah, I did my A level. No, I did my GCSEs. Then went in to start my first year a sixth
Yeah.
form. What a delightful year that was.
So some highlights of 2011. Game of Thrones premiered
Yeah, yeah.
with the first man to die was a regular in Holby City. Um, Charlie Sheen was fired from Two and a Half Men.
Oh, and the winning thing. Was that around
Yeah,
then?
that was
Yeah.
probably around. What else do we have? Fidel Castro resigned. Uh,
Still in
News.
less shameful circumstances than Kingsley Jones.
Yeah. Steve Jobs retired.
Hmm.
Gareth Delve became the first player from overseas to captain an Australian rugby franchise.
Oh, wow. Melbourne
But
Rebels.
also, at the start of the year, on the 22nd of January 2011, Ospreys played Toulon,
Oh,
and we won.
okay.
So today, I'm going to take you through Ospreys versus Toulon in 2017. Now, the game, the squads that day were pretty cut and dry. from an Ospreys point of view. So, Ospreys point of view, you had Duncan, Richard Hibbard, Craig Mitchell, Ian Goff, Alan Wynne Jones, Ryan Jones, Justin Tipuric, Jonathan Thomas. Is that all Welsh? That's an all Welsh pack.
Mm.
Reece Webb, Dan Bigger. That's tasty
Classic
at that point.
vintage. Yeah.
Richard Fussell on the wing.
Oh, now we're talking.
Hook, Nicky Walker, Lee Burton. So 14 out of the 15 were Wales qualified or Wales internationals. Actually, is that Craig Mitchell played for Wales, didn't he?
Yeah. It was that Six Nations. That Six
Yeah,
Nations over
that's
that year,
14.
he was the
Yeah,
starting tight head.
14 out of 15 were Welsh internationals, and the other one was Scottish international. And then on the bench, you had Hugh Bennett, Ryan Bedington, Kai Griffiths, Marty Holler, Mike Phillips, Ashley Beck, Shane Williams. Hello.
That's not bad. Oh yeah, Shane came off the
That's
bench
not.
and
He did come off
created the
the
winning
bench.
try
Set up the winning try for
back
Nicky
from
Walker, yeah,
injury.
on a lovely,
Yeah,
which you don't see
I
anymore. And what Shane really well was a lovely scissors. He did a lovely
I'll
scissors.
I'll tell you what. I do remember where I was this weekend. I was doing my Duke of Edinburgh. I was doing my D of E that weekend because I'd missed the game, but I got a text from my brother and I'd been avoiding the score and everything, which was much easier back then before Wi-Fi and whatever and 4G.
Yeah.
But I got a text from my brother saying Shane Williams is the best player in the world ever. He's better than Johnny Wilkinson because all the hype pre-game about Johnny Wilkinson. And then Shane
Yeah.
creates the winning try. And I then remember watching that game back because it might have even been videotaped. It might not even have Sky Plus at this point. And I remember watching it back and being delighted at Shane's try, but I knew Shane did something to create the winning try or score the winning try at the end already.
There's not many highlights on YouTube,
Mm.
but it's all in French from Canal.
Ah, of course.
And yeah, it's a lovely scissors to set it up. So, do you want forwards or backs first?
Let's go forwards.
Okay, so you have Simone Taumapo. Is it Taumapo?
Tomape, yeah. Good player.
I have to. Yeah, oh god, yeah, he was good. 3-time All Black. So
Yeah.
this was this. So I'm trying to think of timelines now. This is 2009, 2010. When was their Imperium phase?
This was the start of it because
This
it was
was the
sort of
start. This was the
2009
team.
they were bought out by Bougeral.
Yeah.
And then that ran, this was sort of because they had the obviously the lead into that year, 2010 when they made the Challenge Cup final.
Lost Cardiff.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
2011 was the first year in the Champions Cup. And I remember being taught beforehand. I remember Will Greenwood tipping them to win it and saying, like, no one's ever come along and just won it first time. Like, it takes heartbreak and it takes building up to it. And he said, but if any team's ever going to do it, it'll be Toulon this year. But this was their first year as a big dog.
So then you had Jean-Philippe Genevois, who still playing. Oh, he was playing up until 2021. I don't remember him much. I remember he's a big hooker, like a big guy. Looks a bit like looked good in that good Toulon kit this year. This was it was the white and blue one, if you remember.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, 3 was Carl Heyman.
Oh, classic. What a
Who
player.
every time, right? If you be nostalgia accounts that put up like programs of old squads, right? Carl Heyman is in every one of them. Like,
Yeah.
I genuinely, I'm not even joking. He is in like you look at like it'll be like the under-21 World Cup from 1997, and Carl Heyman will be in it. He made his debut for Otago in 98.
Wow. But then played like 800 games for Newcastle as well as, the
He
Toulon
played
era.
64 games for Newcastle.
Wow.
Only got 46 caps for New Zealander. So he joined. So obviously,
But then he left to, for the big payout in Europe. He was one of the first players to do that.
He was, yeah. So this was about to say. So he left. He joined in 2010, and what was, if you go on his, he's got a whole category on his Wikipedia just called Toulon. Um, and so he joined at the same time and as Johnny Wilkinson, Juan Martin Fernandez Lobe, Felipe Contepomi. This is a great list so far, and then it's just Jovan Kirk, who I. It
Joe Van
was he
Niekerk was a
that
good
good,
player at the
Giovanni
time. He
Kirk?
was, he was. Won a
Yeah.
World Cup, was part of that Springbok team in 2007. Was a very good player and was great for this Toulon team. And then obviously went on to run a cult.
Yeah. If you don't know, um, if you don't know, go search up Giovanni Kirk now.
It's incredible.
Um,
Jungle Joe.
Jungle Joe. Um, Obviously the sad thing about Carl Heyman now, he's been diagnosed with dementia.
Oh, of
That was,
course.
yeah, he's part of the big lawsuit. So, all power to you, Carl. Great player. He's consistently up there. He's also in every list that you see a prop. Who's the hardest prop to play against? Just Carl Heyman's always in there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Undoubtedly. He's all
Right.
everyone through him. It was him, Nickel and Mao were the two that always got thrown out.
Yeah. Into the second row, then you got Jocelino Suta.
I don't remember him. Oh no, no, I do. No, I do. Yeah,
Tremendous
yeah,
man
yeah,
at
yeah.
all.
Yeah, played for Fiji in. Am I
French,
thinking of the right
French.
player?
Was he French or Fijian? I've got him as French.
Am I thinking of someone
Player of
else?
French formation. He played he got one cap for France. 118 times for Toulon.
Okay, no, I'm thinking of someone completely different. Never mind, as you were.
Jocelyn Suter. Um, he was with Devold Maya Senecal, who I'm assuming is South African with a name like that.
You'd imagine so. Again, no memory of him.
No. Yeah, he
But
was
these are
a he.
probably the players that came through and helped them through from the Pro Day. A lot of these probably hanging over from those days.
So Dewald Senecal uh, is an assistant coach at New England Free Jacks.
He's at Benetton. He's
He
forward
was at
coach at
Benetton. I'm
Benetton.
pretty sure. Is
No,
he
this
not
is
a Free Jack?
2024 apparently. Oh no, he's coming in 2025 so he's leaving Benetton mid-season.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah. Also played professional cricket as well as rugby.
Interesting.
Talented
Imagine that.
and enormous man.
He's 6'6" cricketer. That's what you want.
Yeah,
So
he
Olivier
can be the
Missou.
bat. Yeah, Miss Soup, my
Olivier
soup
Missou. Yeah.
in French. They have in
Again,
the back row soup and sauce.
yeah. Sue Rice.
It's a whole
I don't
meal.
remember Olivier Missou, actually.
I don't remember
Oh,
any of this
yes, I
back
do.
five.
Yes, I think I do. He was quite old at the time, I think. See, the problem with All Dot Rugby is it started in 2013.
Yeah,
Anyway, so then Thomas Sue Rice and then Fotu Aulea, who I believe is he Samoan?
it's a Tongan sounding name.
Tongan or Samoan? Oh, he's Australian.
Yeah.
Came from the Brumbies.
Oh, Samoan descent. You're right.
Yeah. Played for Dax. He played for Dax in 2006. Can you imagine the shit he got up to? Like in the ruck.
That
So
will
that's
have
obviously
been. Yeah, you imagine what goes on the Pro Day these days.
so
Imagine back
apart
then.
from Carl Heyman, that's a pretty tame pack for that era.
Yeah,
So obviously no Juan Martin Fernandez Lobe, no Giovanni Kirk, obviously. But the backs is where it gets interesting. So they clearly thought we can send a weakened pack over, but the backs is where we need to sort of go into it. So Matt Henyak,
yeah, fine player, Australian scrum half, bald.
Australian, yeah, blonde, looks a bit like Justin Marshall if, You had to draw Justin Marshall
From
with
memory.
your eyes closed.
Yeah.
Um, he played for Australia because Elton Flatley got injured.
Oh.
Oh, so right, yeah, he's got scandals on his Wikipedia.
Of course he has. Okay. I
Uh,
hate rugby.
the complainant was secretly paid 16,000 Australian dollars or £4.50 to drop the assault charges. And then obviously Johnny Wilkinson at 10. So we had Johnny
I
Wilkinson with Dan Bigger.
I don't remember him at all. It's Johnny Wilkinson. I'd probably look him up, see who he is.
So he's a Newcastle boy.
Right.
Apparently, he did a drop goal.
Okay. Was this for
That
Toulon, like when in the Pro Day?
No, I think it's England.
Oh, okay.
I think it's a tier two nation.
Right, I've looked up John Wilkins. It's John Wilkinson. You say rugby.
Yeah,
He apparently the
John
chairman of
Wilkinson.
Salford Rugby League from 1982 to 2013.
Nice. I've got
Um,
John Wilkinson
Nicknamed
Heating
Mr.
Services.
Salford. Okay.
Or you've got John Wilkinson, the industrialist, who pioneered the manufacture of cast iron and the use of cast iron goods.
Hmm. I'm pretty sure there's a John Wilkinson that played for Ireland or something as well.
Yeah.
And those are the only famous John Wilkinsons.
So of course we're talking about Johnny
Yeah.
Wilkinson. Um, good
One of the
play.
greats.
His
One of the
best rugby was
greats.
Toulon. His
Agreed. Agreed. That was the peak of his powers.
because it's really interesting because one of my favorite podcasts is the Blood and Mud Patreon special where they look at the 2005 Lions tour.
Mm.
Um, and in it, Lee talks about Johnny Wilkinson, and he says he was on top of the world in 2003.
Yeah.
Apologies, and then essentially was injured until 2007. That's
Yeah.
mental. Like 4 years essentially of
Well,
injury.
I think when we did the 2007 series of the retrospective podcast, he had played something like 6 games since the last World Cup. It was a stupidly low number, and they then rushed him back that year. And he then spent the following year, 2008 injured, and 2009 that autumn international. He came back in. It was his first games at Twickenham in like, I think maybe since 2003, or certainly like 3 or 4 years. There was an infamous bit against Argentina where Wilkinson, who was completely out of form at the time,
Was this Ugo
um,
Monye at fullback?
Ugo Mondi at fullback game. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes,
It was
what a
a like
game.
absolute disaster to the point that we put Matt Banahan at fullback for a bit as well, which just even worse. Um, but there's a bit where England had like a 5-man overlap. They sling the ball out quickly, and Wilkinson goes for a drop goal and misses. And
Yeah.
it was like complete Martin Johnson doing a job significantly better than Kingsley Jones at Canada. At again, peak of that era was that game against Argentina there.
Hmm. I think not that the world had written him off because he has enough credit in the bank because he is Johnny Wilkinson.
Yeah, yeah.
But he went to Toulon and fuck me, he was good. Like he
He was
was
unbelievable. Yeah.
good.
As I said, that was the best rugby of his career, was that few years at Toulon. Like he was phenomenal.
There's that there's that clip of him doing the team talk in French. And I'm not one for
Mm.
them generally. But it's just it was excellent. It was so good. And he's just good. He
Yeah.
is just he that 2014 Heineken Cup final, against Saracens where it was, obviously builders, um the Farrell versus Wilkinson thing. Um do you remember that? Do you remember that game? The 2014 final?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do you remember what
The
happened after it?
what happened after it?
The fans, both sets of fans apparently sang God Save the Queen in tribute to the retiring Johnny Wilkinson.
No, they didn't.
I'm being deadly serious.
I believe they wrote that. I believe that was done by like four people. It was two
That
Toulon fans and like a couple of Saracens fans doing it together next to each other near one
absolutely.
journalist, and it got blown out of proportion.
What's funny, I'm looking at that 2014 team. There is two players I can see that survive. Let's see, yeah, three players: Carl Heyman, uh, Johnny Wilkinson, and Jocelyn Sousa.
Wow, okay.
So yeah, Johnny Wilkinson's there. Obviously, he's up against Dan Bigger, who, where are we now? 2011. So he won't go to the World Cup. Dan Bigger.
2011. Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
he
Dan
did go to
Bigger.
the World
Yeah, yeah. Dan Bigger. No, no, no. He got left
Cup.
out
No,
the
he
training
didn't.
squad for Jason
Yeah,
Tovey.
yeah. So obviously, Dan Bigger doesn't go. Probably a bad year because obviously it doesn't go. The Six Nations that year, 2011. What's they finished? Third?
Wales.
Yeah.
Yeah, they go into the last day. If they beat France by like 41, they could have won the championship. And they just didn't go for it at all. They just spent the entire game kicking penalties and that. And I remember being really frustrated
Four.
on the day. Then James Hook gets yellow carded for dropping someone after doing a lift tackle. And he says, I put him down tidy like. And those are my memories of that Super Saturday.
But it was weird because you had that year. It was still. Um, it was still Stephen Jones was still in there, and you still had Reece
Yeah,
Priestland, who
yeah.
was rightly there on form, and Bigger wasn't getting a look in. Um, yeah, so that's a tasty matchup. So you got Tutai Kefu. I'm assuming is that
Good player.
Tutai Kefu?
Good player. Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Wasn't he a back rower though?
No, it's not Tutakefu.
Not Tutai Kefu, was it?
What's his name? This is great audio.
This
Um,
is fantastic audio. It's not Mafi Kefu. Is it
that would fit
Mafaleo?
though, because
It is
he
Mafaleo Kefu, isn't it?
Mafelo Kefu, yeah, who was his brother, who was
Yeah.
Toto Kefu's brother.
Yes, yes, it would have been. Yeah, because he left. He left Toulon this year.
Yeah.
So yeah, so obviously son of younger brother of Steve Kefu and Tutai Kefu. Yeah, I don't remember him at all,
Mm.
but they've got it down on Sky as Tutai Kefu, which would have been, again would be fantastic if it was because Tutai Kefu was an eight.
Yeah.
Um, do you want to know a fact about Mafaleo Kefu?
The Sonny Bill stuff.
Yes, a Sonny Bill
Yeah.
star. So for those who don't know, obviously Sonny Bill defected from the NRL to play rugby for Toulon, which now is cool,
Hmm.
and the cool kids, come from the Roosters to go play for the Waratahs, but back then it was sacrilegious. Um, so Sonny Bill went and stayed in Mafaleo Kefu's house uh, to hide from the media who wanted to kill him. Mafaleo Kefu. So outside of them was Jeffrey Messina.
Solid player.
Yeah,
Perfectly solid player.
solid. How old had he been? Was he young at this point or was he old?
I I couldn't tell you.
Jeffrey
He
Messina.
wasn't a name I paid much attention to, really.
He's gives me very big Owen Watkin vibes though.
Oh, I can see that. Yeah.
Um, Benjamin Lepire.
Great
Uh,
player. What a player,
yeah,
Benjamin Lepandre. Yeah.
yeah,
Phenomenal player. Loved him. Disappeared about Trace. Don't get to think about him very much these days, but I enjoy the fact I am now.
yeah. With Thierry Brana on the other wing, and then weirdly at 15 is Rory Lamont.
Rory Lamont, pre 5G conspiracy theory days.
Yeah,
Back when he'd like appear on an AstroTurf because he didn't think it was going to give him like gay disease or something.
he is an interesting man. Rory Lamont. So I'm looking at his Instagram now, and his bio intrigues me.
Don't get too close.
Yeah. Uh, ex-international rugby player. Yeah, that's true. Owner, welcome to whatever. Meditation and breathwork. Retreat facilitator. He went all Joe Van Niekerk at one point. Do you remember his long hair?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yep. He's a slightly more dangerous character. Actually, no, I don't. I don't know. He's an interesting one. Is Rory Lamont
I hope he's more
completely up
dangerous
the
than he
deep
was on a
end?
rugby field. He terminated his own contract because he wasn't getting enough playing time.
Hmm. Not because he
Yeah,
wasn't
so
getting
that's
paid
the
the full
15.
amount, as happened with everyone else in this Toulon team, other than Backy's Boater, infamously.
Yeah, that was yeah. You've then got some sort of Christoph Sampson, who I remember he was
Mhm.
on the bench. Joel El Abd, of
Yeah,
course,
now England defence coach.
who gave away one very interesting. I think it was a crucial penalty he gave away
Okay.
in this game. Tom May.
Yes. During his little career of just following Johnny Wilkinson everywhere.
He
Like
was
wherever Johnny
he was like
Wilkinson went, he was like, "Can I come too? I'm Tom May."
good
And
player.
now into his career as the commentator on games where you go, "Why am I watching this?"
Yeah. It's Romania versus Estonia at 2 a.m. and it's
Yeah.
Tom May commentating.
And good on him. Good on
Yeah,
him.
oh,
I think he's,
absolutely. I think it's
yeah,
fantastic.
absolutely.
My favorite part of his
A perfectly solid player.
yeah, oh, I think so as well. My favorite part of his social media is on 9th of July 2024, May joined rugby social media account Rugby Inside Line for the 2024-25 season,
Yes. Yes, he
uh,
did.
who have stopped posting again.
Have they? Oh, they got
Yeah.
suspiciously absent. They haven't, like, because Northampton lost at the weekend.
No, they've stopped. No, stopped posting like
Yeah. Just end off.
since round one of the Prem Cup.
Oh, wow.
Um, but yeah, Tommy, I thought Tommy was a good player personally.
Yeah, yeah. No, he was good.
Like in
Really
that fight,
solid, like, club player.
yeah. Laurent Mangaval,
Yeah, decent.
like Laurent Mangaval. How many French caps did he get?
Well, not many, I don't think.
Because I'm assuming he's a back rower, yeah? No.
I thought he was. I
Oh,
was gonna say isn't. Yeah, he's a scrum half. Yeah,
it's from half, of course,
yeah,
yeah.
no
Sorry.
caps. Yeah,
Yeah. And Chris Chesney,
yes. Who I barely remember.
who who I was like, Chris Chesney, he's got to be like South African. No, he's from Ilford in London. He's he, he's from yeah, but I didn't realize he played 300 games or 298 games for Saracens, right?
Wow.
He was
Okay.
old when he went to Toulon. He went to Toulon in 2009. He made his debut for Sarries in 95.
Mm. Wow. Okay.
He was old.
Very first professional intake.
Yeah. So yeah,
Remember the days when we'd bring Marty Hall and Mike Phillips, Ashley Beck, and Shane Williams off the
that was
bench?
yeah, I wanted to go back to that because that's mental.
Hugh Bennett, Ryan Berrington, like Kai Griffiths is the only non-international on that bench. I suppose Ashley Beck didn't have his first cap yet, but that'll come a
No.
year later.
Ashley
But
Beck was he must have been what, 18?
I think 20. I think it was probably 20 because I think he was 21 when he made his debut for Wales, which was 2012 against Australia.
Yes, of course. Just the talent we're bringing off the bench. But even like Marty Hollins didn't even come on. We
Marty
did,
Holl is an
we just
unused
we
substitute.
took the piss that much. We didn't bring Marty Holler on.
But this was the absolute start of the Justin Tipuric hype train, right? This was before Tips' first cap. Like,
Well, yeah,
it
it was
literally
the
broke
start of
into the
this season.
team.
Didn't he do the chip against Cardiff this
That
season?
was, yeah, yeah, that would have been, yeah, 2010, yeah,
Yeah, and he
against
did the
Edinburgh.
same. The chip was against Cardiff, wasn't it?
The chip against Edinburgh over Chris Patterson
Oh, he did so many. He
on
did the
his
one
first
against Jack.
start, on his first league start.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But then you had like Hibbard was probably peak of his powers at this point. Maybe in the
Yeah.
next 2 years.
Yeah, I think it was
Definitely
probably he's probably a year
leading
before, isn't it? The absolute like
leading
prime of
up
his
to that
career.
2013 Lions tour, he was peak of his powers.
Yeah, it was 2012, 13 where he was absolutely brilliant.
Hook was probably playing some good rugby. Sonny Parker was on his way out.
Yeah, well, Hook was the start in Wales 10, the Six Nations right after this.
Yeah, it's true. Um, Duncan was still probably was really good at this point.
Yeah.
Lee Byrne, he was in the best form of his life. Alan Wynne scored in this game.
That's always a
The rare
rarity.
Alan Wynne Jones score.
Against
Jonathan
his
Smith,
future team, against the only other club he ever played for.
yeah, obviously damn big. There's a lot of foreshadowing in this one. 9 and 10 also
Oh,
played
of
for Toulon.
course. Of course. Gutted
Who else
Fussell
played
never
for?
got his run out in that all-star
Yeah,
team.
damn it. Maybe next time, Kai Griffiths. But yeah, it's just so mental that we inspired Toulon to go on and beat you know
Yeah,
European.
personally, us.
I
The
think
other results, sorry.
Wayne Barnes refereed it as well.
Oh, cool. That officially makes it a good game.
Mm. So Toulon changed their whole squad apart from Johnny Wilkinson to come for this match because they
Wow.
beat Munster the week before. So clearly Johnny must have been coming out from um, injury
Johnny
or
was, yeah, he was
something.
just back. Yeah, he's just back from an injury like the week beforehand. Yeah.
Um, no, the Shane Williams came on at the hour mark. He really just put the game into life. Um, we obviously came back from behind.
Mm.
We were down like 19, or we were down 17-9 at half time. So, obviously to come back then and win 29-17, that's pretty nice. I just thought, I was looking for a game and I thought, what one day we will talk about Biarritz, right? And that is not today. That
Yeah.
is not today. But I thought, going into Europe this weekend, I don't particularly want to do the Lions game from last year because I want Yestin to be here because he has a particularly
Yeah.
funny
Yeah.
story from that day, if you remember. Um, and we will do that one at some point. But I thought, what's it? I don't remember this game at all until I saw the stuff.
Mm.
There was an article that came out this time called Johnson back in Williams, whereas Ospreys DOR Scott Johnson reckons Shane Williams could make an impact for Wales against England. You think? Jeez, jeez, Scott. But I think it was because he'd come back from injury.
This
Was
was his
was
first game back from injury. Yeah, he'd been out for a few months.
Yeah.
In that typical way all of our players did at the time, where they play one game for us before getting back from to get back from injury before playing for Wales and
Mm.
getting injured again at the end of that campaign.
Mike Phillips was our player for the next 3 years, as far as he's concerned.
Wow.
Um, Weirdly, right? So Toulon captain Matt Henyak said the Ospreys wanted it more. Maybe
Wait a
foreshadowing to this
second. Are
pod.
you saying Matt Hendak that Toulon
Didn't
did they
want it.
did they not want it?
They didn't want it. Um, I'm really proud of the guys. We made 14 changes, but we are a squad of 35 to 38. That's a fucking lie. And
Maybe that
everyone
was
is a
just the times then.
yeah,
Wow.
but also everyone's on 400 grand a year, Matt.
Yeah.
They aren't in training because they're wheeling around their gold wheelbarrow. We should be ready to play, and we were ready to play. We just got beaten by a better team. We are very disappointed. We came to win and lost.
Wow.
Was this conducted by a 12-year-old? Was this interview done by a 12-year-old? Was Matt
It was
Henyak
done by
okay?
an Australian scrum half, which I think
Yeah.
is not a million miles away. That's a thing that can get me hashtag cancelled by
Yeah.
the bloody woke. No,
Elton
no,
Flatley's going to count.
no one's
Right.
listening to
So that,
Stephen.
that that was a muddled up play. But
We can just do Christmas films for the rest of the time, like you did last week.
happy day. Oh, fine. It's better than talking about the Lions again on the weekend. Um, So the Lions come to town on the weekend, coming
Yes.
off a 17-10 loss to Munster, in a game that was awful. It wasn't a great game. Um, it was pretty. I don't expect Lions to do anything different than they did last year, maybe apart from respect us a bit more.
Mm.
But they have such a small squad that they have no choice but to
So
guys out.
the Lions have apparently sent 12 players back home. They've kept a lot of the squad out, having played Munster last week. But they've sent 12 players home. Um, I don't know who those players are. I haven't got, names, but
Okay.
it looks like they are resting quite a few of their big names and going to focus on the home game. And then obviously they have games over Christmas.
Yeah,
Um,
they have the Dragons at home
yeah.
in the new year, which we've been that Soldier Dragons. Uh, Here we go. A very different Lions team to face Ospreys this weekend. This is from Supersport, if it loads. Here we go. Considering the Ospreys beat them last season at Emirates Airline Park, it makes an interesting sort of choice to send a dozen players home, as to prepare for their first home game against Section Palois. So Edward van der Merwe has been sent home. Thank God.
Mm. We've got a 6-day
Quan,
turnaround between games,
yeah, Quan
being a big
Horn,
factor here.
sent in Little Blakanye, who's weirdly linked to Toulon as well. Henko van Viek.
Uh, Ruan Venter picked up an injury as well, so he's been sent home.
Yeah.
Siba Korma and Mornay Brandon as well also got injuries.
Okay. Saneli Nahamba is favourite to take the 10 jersey this weekend. Because
Mm.
Cade Volhulter is concussed. Which Saneli Nahamba at 10 could be the making and the downfall of the Lions.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, so it'd be interesting to see that, obviously
but
Gatton they're not bringing their full team, but it's more of an excuse, not more of an excuse. No, we have to win this. We have to. We
yeah,
need to prioritize the five. I remember being in this last season where we were like, we just want to, we want the draw to be kind with us. Obviously, we got Sale, we got then Gloucester. So we should be targeting 5 points here, and then five against Newcastle, and then
yeah.
whatever we can get out of the other two. Because
So
who
you
have
just
we
build
got?
from there. Yeah,
Is it Perpignan away?
Perpignan. Yeah, Perpignan to Montpellier away.
So yeah, we need to be targeting whatever we can get.
Montpellier will not target this competition. Like Montpellier, we should
I'd be
be able to
very
pick up
surprised
points
if
there.
we do.
Um,
I'd be very surprised.
that is honestly not that bad a team to draw. They never really target this, but they're currently in 11th in the top 14. So they're doing solidly, but they are within 4 points, within 5 points of the bottom. If they slip a game somewhere, they could end up back in the relegation zone. So it's a huge kind of time for them around this Christmas window. It's the time which they're probably most vulnerable to slipping down. So I highly, highly doubt they're going to do anything. I actually saw a Perpignan fan saying that they actively want them to be playing their weakest possible team.
Oh, is
They
that
want to
Scrum
be
Half going to play again?
the guy who just slaps the ball all the time.
Yeah,
I
I
want him.
really
Yeah,
hope he plays
get him
again.
out. He was great fun last year.
That was my favourite thing from last season. That might actually be up there. My favourite thing last year. He did it 3 times, and then the ref sent him off, and he still looked shocked.
Wait a second. No, Perpignan playing Cardiff. I've got that wrong.
Who have we got?
Were we playing
Is it Poe?
Poe? It's Poe. Poe. Sorry, Poe. Yeah.
Okay.
Who? Look, I would say are in exactly the same position. You just replace everything I said.
The
They're
same
also on
team.
19 points. They're doing 7 points better on points difference than Perpignan. They're in 10th. So even less reason for them to there, but they probably have a slightly deeper squad than Perpignan.
Have they got anyone good this year?
I mean, Sam Whitelock's left. But
They
obviously
got Harry Williams.
Oh wow, okay.
Um,
Oh yeah, Gaetan, of course. Dan
they got
Robson
Joel
there.
Kapoku. He's
Jack
good.
Maddox, Theo Ezitonge, who obviously played for France in the autumn. Becca Gulgadze, who was a hell of a
Yeah.
player, phenomenal player, Georgian
Luke
captain.
Whitelock is there.
Yeah, yeah, hanging on.
Joe Simmons, MBE. Oh,
But
Theo Atisogbe, one of the most exciting
yeah,
young
yeah,
British players.
he's brilliant. Joel Kapoku as well, has
Yeah,
been
big
quite a
fan of Joel
story back in
Coker.
England. But
Yeah,
I think once you and of course Sir Joe, Emperor of the Land, Simmons,
yeah.
they've got a very, very solid team. But again, once you dig slightly beneath that,
Mhm.
there isn't as much depth as there is in some of the other French teams. More than there is at Perpignan, I'd say. But hopefully by
Yeah,
that
and God,
point,
that squad they sent over last year, Jesus.
but like we are their last game
So yeah,
in Europe, so potentially they are just given up by that point and they've sunk and they're whatever. Um, but yeah,
yeah,
this
you
game
hope that
we really, fingers crossed. Obviously, no Ospreys team, no press conference yet. Hopefully that'll come. You'd imagine tomorrow,
tomorrow,
or
yeah,
press conference tomorrow, and then team after that. We should be able to bring back in Jack Morgan, bring back in Gartom, bring back in Dewi Lake,
yeah.
which would be huge boosts, which would change the team pretty much entirely from the one that played last weekend. Um, and then potentially Dan Edwards as well. I'm not quite sure where he is. Obviously, the concussion he had. Um, there's no sign of him at the weekend, but if he can come back in, I also think that's another thing on that Zebra game is Dan Edwards changes that game completely. Like I just think he is already the most complete fly half we have in the squad. And
I think he changes that game as well.
yeah, I think there's a good chance we win that, even if we can just bring Dan Edwards off the bench.
So
That we create enough to win that.
let's finish on a squad.
Yeah.
We're saying Gartom, Terry
So
Late.
Gartom, Dewi, Tom Bota.
Who needs a big game?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, Hope. I'm going to say Fender.
Yeah.
Hoping Ratty.
Yes, hopefully.
I think Great Banks has a lot of potential, right? But it's clear
Yeah.
to see he wasn't supposed to play this year.
Yeah. Will Griff is obviously back from injury and was being
Yeah,
Booth said he was
he's
gonna,
been
ease him
man.
through it. Yeah. And I wonder if we might see him back in, maybe even just on the bench.
I think
Uh
on the bench. I think Deeves starts this game.
yeah.
Controversial for me.
But do you put Will Griff in the second row if Ratty
No,
isn't ready or Sutton isn't ready?
If Ratty's injured, then yeah, I put Will Griffin.
Yeah. And then
Um,
presumably Sutton's got an injury as well because he
yeah,
wasn't
you do.
seen.
Yeah, he'd be in and around it. I personally, for me, I'm going Harry Deeves, Jack Morgan, Morgan Morris.
Um yeah. Yeah, yeah. And Tips on the bench.
Yeah,
Yeah. I like that.
I just think Harry Deeves.
On
You just,
form, he is the
yeah,
form
you
player in
want
that
him
back row.
flying at people. You want him in and around that contact area. I think his meters after contact is really good.
Bulking up over the summers really adds to his carrying game. Like he's managed to bring the
Yeah,
same kind of dynamism and energy he brings in defense
and
to having the
everything
ball as
you hear
well.
about him is the fact that he's just the best trainer. He's the best,
Yeah.
you know. So we're saying Kieran Hardy, Dan Edwards.
I think you've kind of got to if Ruben's still carrying a bit of an injury.
Yeah,
Um, and hopefully Hardy's more up to it and more up to kind of,
yeah.
match fitness.
Uh, Giles on one wing. I think he
Yes.
was great
I thought he was,
last
yeah,
week.
absolutely fantastic. Yeah.
Centres. Now, I think Keith stays,
Mm,
and I think Owen stays. I'm hoping Phil Cocknessing is fit. I'd like to
yeah.
see him in Europe. Um, and
And
then Sunday,
I'd be tempted to just change the centers just because I
what would
think
you
both of
say?
them look knackered.
Phil and well,
I think
I
there's
think
a I think you probably Watkins had, some time off not playing much with Wales, but by all
yeah,
accounts, Wales are absolutely flogging players in training. But I think I just think both of those players have played too many minutes over the last two seasons that they need to
mm,
be rested somewhere. Um, and this is obviously a huge game. You've got to build momentum through it, but I don't know, man. I worry if not here, then where.
But
Um,
the thing is, who do we change it for? We have no
yeah,
one.
but Tom Florence is injured. Falcon the Singer might still be, and Boshoff,
We
I
don't
don't
know
know.
about Cocknessing.
Yeah,
Boshoff. I mean, I don't hate Kieran Boshoff. I don't hate Kieran Phil. I don't hate
yeah.
Phil Owen, I don't,
I'd be tempted by going Keith and Bosch off and having Watkin and Tips both on the bench as kind of safety blanket,
yeah,
having like
Watkin on the bench makes sense to me, but
Watkin,
it's
Tips, Owen Williams
harsh
on
on
the bench
Nagy.
as like a mass like bench unit of experience.
Yeah, I think the centers are. I think he will still go for Keith and Owen. Like, I think
Yeah,
that will
I think
be
so. I think so.
the pick. But I wouldn't be surprised if centers changed around. We need to.
Yeah.
Um, and then Walsh at 15, who I
You've only picked
think.
one winger.
No, I put Cassende in the other one.
Okay, Kazende, yeah. I'd be tempted by putting Yeston Hopkins in though. I thought he was really good when he came on.
I thought he was
But
really good, but then both wingers played really well
yeah, yeah. So you can't drop over them.
for
But
me. I think Daniel Cassende brings the physicality.
yeah.
I think Hopkins played really well in this fixture last year in the European one,
Mm,
but I do think Cassende was really physical, and I think you can, especially if Lions aren't putting out a good team, you
mm,
can use that.
yeah.
Um, on the bench, I think it'll be Sam Parry,
Yes.
but I wouldn't hate Lewis Lloyd.
Agreed.
I think Garen Phillips or Steph Tom, again, it doesn't really matter. I think Garen, if you want the dynamism on the carry. Ben Warren, Reece Henry played for Aberavon last weekend, so he could well
Hopefully
be
he's fit.
Reece Henry.
If he's back, he's in, as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned. Like, yeah. He remains the second best scrummager we have.
Nine,
However, with the state the scrum's been in, we kind of need that more than we need players who are fully fit.
yeah. 19, I'd say it's Will Griff or Ratty.
Yep, agreed. Depending on whoever's fit.
20, I thought Tips.
Agreed.
21, Luke. 22, Owen Williams.
Yeah.
And
And
then
then
23,
Max Nagy or Yeston Hopkins. I think it becomes this thing, right? And I think with um that bench, you've almost got like a brains trust of players you can trust to come on and change things. Of players that are experienced enough to go, okay, if we're in a hole, we can solve this, or they can keep the performance level up if things are going well. And
my issue with
mm,
Nagy on the bench is the Adam Beard issue. Is I don't see Nagy as someone who comes on and is a game breaker.
yeah,
I see Yeston Hopkins as someone who can come on and look at broken field and
and he looked like that the weekend. Yeah, so
yeah,
Hopkins 23.
yeah. But again, I wouldn't hate Nagy in there. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Sure, yeah.
yeah, it's a really interesting one in that sense. So yeah, I think the squad there is a lot to come back in that squad.
Mm.
Um, yeah, it's going to be interesting. So do it. 5 points to target.
I think it's got to be the target, but I just take the win, you know?
Yeah,
I think
at
at
this
this
point.
stage, you've got to take what you can get and you've got to build from here into the rest of the season because the comparison point is 2 years ago when the start of the season, we were getting into positions where we could win games, much as we did against Zebra. Like we got into a position we could have won that in the end. And yet we weren't taking any of them. And even in games where we were ahead, Reece Webb was throwing intercept pass after intercept pass to lose it and so on, like against the Lions a few years back. But then we win the game. You know, we have the game against Montpellier away, which is obviously coming the week after, and it turns the whole season around. And a good European campaign can do that. You know, it can reboot the whole season, and we kind of need that, and that would be huge. And I don't want to put any pressure on, you know, the game and say like if we lose this, then everything falls apart. I don't think it's that at all. You know, I think there's multiple chances to reboot this, but the Challenge Cup, I think from the start, has almost felt like the aim after how we did last year, and the learnings you take from that and you build forwards. And I'd be really excited by this and how we can go, where we can go with it. Yeah,
I think we've got an incredibly boring European fixture list,
yes, we
but I
do.
think there's the ability to build something from it, and I think that starts in the weekend.
Absolutely.
I think that's going to be it, though. I think we are
Yeah,
dragging on.
we've
We,
somehow done almost 2 hours
yeah,
when
of
we haven't
Kenny
wanted to
Jones,
talk
yeah.
about it. Mate, Kingsley Jones is gone. I can't believe it. Ding dong, the witch is
Free
dead.
my boy Tyler Ardron. I didn't realize they sent him over to do the media day in Cardiff, and I just thought, oh my god,
Yeah,
he's come home.
he's come home. Can we just snag him in talks? I
So
promise you, Kingsley would not be anywhere to be seen.
no, he'd be on
Nor
Skype
will Alan
somewhere.
Clark.
Not even on
Yeah.
Zoom. He'd be on Skype. He'd be on MSN video call. Right, I think that's going to be it. We'll be back next week, hopefully up to a full cohort, maybe even with an interview. Who knows?
Mm,
We'll be back. You can check Robbie out on Blue Sky at Squidge Rugby on Blue Sky. He is still on X, but that's just to post video links. He's literally got a 2 minute limit.
yep.
Uh, I am gonna go watch Michael Bay Transformers movie
Oh no. Why?
because it's a really great study on American culture in the mid 2000s.
I'll give you that.
And I'm being deadly serious. I
No,
even
no.
referenced it in my um,
You're not wrong in that.
um, but there are
Right
also
down to the rampant misogyny.
yeah, Michael Bay. I want to study his brain. Um, but I'm actually
Ambulance, absolute banger.
yes, I still haven't watched it. I need to
It's
watch
great.
it.
It's really good.
Um, what are you gonna do tonight, Robbie?
Oh, I don't know. Probably just leave the office. That'd be nice.
Yeah, go home and do more work. Right, we'll be back next week. If you like what you see, check out the other stuff on the Rap channel. We've reached over 1,000 subscribers now, which pales into comparison to the bloke I'm on the call with, but you know, it means we can get paid. um, so yeah, you'll see us soon. Have a good one, folks.